Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to those of you who are joining us from across the world today for another edition of Pandemic Punditry brought to you by the Content Experience Company. We are delighted to have with us Erdem Erikçi, CTO of Biftek, the company that is producing an affordable growth medium to help cell-based meat companies achieve price parity. Welcome to Pandemic Punditry, Erdem.
Hi, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
It's great. It's a very interesting subject. I don't think we've had on Pandemic Punditry a company that exclusively focused on a growth medium for cell-based meat companies. So we're very excited to speak with you. I wanted to give some of our readers some context as to why you're on the show, and also to sort of understand the gravity of the problem that you're solving, right? So, for example, I know people may or may not be familiar, but a kilogram of meat requires 15,500 liters of water to produce, 178 square meters of land, and 150 milligrams of antibiotics, something that people really don't talk about, but yes, that's there. And it also sort of emits 300 kilograms of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. So cultured or cell-based meat, which is sort of the new smart protein revolution that's going on, is not only cruelty-free, but it's sustainable and a scalable, planet-friendly option. So that's the market, that's the customer for what Erdem is, company Biftek is providing a solution for. And I just want to sort of talk a little bit about, this sort of product that, and you're going to, sort of illuminate for us the specifics of what you do. But the common sort of medium that cell-based companies use is something called Fetal-Bovine-Serum, or FBS. And for some people may or may not know this, but it's a little stomach churning, so I apologize. It is harvested from bovine fetuses taken from pregnant cows during slaughter. And these are from selected slaughterhouses, and they have an aseptic system where right at the slaughterhouse, they harvest these serum, and they do that by a cardiac puncture without any anesthesia. And approximately 500,000 liters of FBS is produced annually, which requires approximately 1 million bovine fetuses. So that is what you're trying to replace, I'm assuming. And in case you're wondering why we need this much FBS, it's because both in the pharmaceutical and research industry is everything from vaccines to stem cell research, cloning, in vitro fertilization, biopharmaceuticals, gene therapy. All of this stuff require FBS, and that's why this many, fetuses, aborted fetuses, are required. So, Erdem, what is unique about your approach for developing an affordable growth medium?
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah. So as you say, to be able to produce FBS, so you need to kill lots of animals, not only the mother but the babies, the babies of those cows. So FBS is a golden standard for all molecular biology lab as well as pharmaceutical research. So my background is molecular biology. So I have been spanning tens of years in wet lab, trying to expanding cells, differentiating them. So it used to be my routine during my PhD years. And most of the cases I used FBS since it's the gold standard, so cells need it. There are some exceptions though. For example, I used to work on neuronal stem cells. Those neuronal stem cells cannot survive in FBS. They need another supplement. But in most of the cases, so you need to use FBS. And the quantities that is produced annually all around the world is quite significant. And so now there's a new area, new space, new sector growing and gonna be much bigger in the following years, which is clean meat. And for the production of those cells, you need to follow the same protocols, more or less same. Of course, there are going to be very different points, but so more or less it's going to resemble the gold standard procedures. But so using FPS cannot be an option. It's impossible because it's all against the philosophy of the clean meats. So we have to remove animals from the supply chain, from food supply chain, completely, 100%, without an exception. Therefore, there can't be any FPS, right? In the solutions, in the production procedures, it must be somehow replaced. The trick behind FPS is that it contains a soup of everything, soup of all growth factors that requires to grow every kind of cells in a body of a cow, right? So it contains the growth factors that is required to grow neuronal stem cells, as well as muscle stem cells, as well as skin stem cells, whatever you can imagine. But it's a soup, and because it circulates in the blood, in the body. However, we are interested as researcher in clean meat space. We are interested only in growing the muscle stem cells, right, or pluripotent stem cells or fat cells. So they're quite limited. Therefore, you may not need most of the content of FPS. You may need like only 10 of them. If you can identify them, then you can mix them together and apply it on the cells. But although this approach sounds like straightforward and easy, there are still some problems with it, which is those growth factors must be produced artificially in the lab, and it is expensive. It is an expensive procedure, so you still can't drop the price of meat to the levels of conventional meat. Therefore, you may need to find some other alternative approach, which we are after. We are unique in that field because we are kind of focusing the materials that can replace those growth factors that are originated already available in nature, like secreted from microbes, for example, I mean microorganisms, or available in plants, or that could be harvested from mammalian cells that are cultured separately in a separate vessel. So we are not modifying any organism to be able to harvest those growth factors, but we are trying to harvest them from nature, from sources that are already available. Right now, we are highly focused on the interaction between the hosts and the microorganisms. I mean the microbiota. So as you know, neither us nor other mammalians are living alone. So we are living together with microorganisms. Thousands of them live in our guts, in the inner linings of our organs. So we are kind of in collaboration with them. Without them, we can't survive. Without us, they can't survive. So the numbers are quite striking. More than half of us doesn't belong to us. So they are made of microorganisms. So you can imagine how important this collaboration is. So therefore, there must be an indispensable exchange of factors between our cells and them, right? So if you investigate them, then you can induce the proliferation or differentiation of the cells that are important for clean meat space in much cheaper way, because growing those microbes, microorganisms is quite easy, much cheaper, and convenient. So this is what makes us unique in its space, I can say.
So if I, not a scientist, if I understood the science a little bit, so I understand that there is 1,000+ sort of components that are in FBS, right? Proteins, electrolytes, lipids, carbohydrates, hormones, enzymes, whole bunch of other things. And you rightly pointed out that all of those are not required for the clean meat industry, because you're only looking to grow muscle and fat and tissue, and not anything. You're not trying to do nerves, and you're not trying to do other things. So all of those components that are traditionally found in FBS is not something you would require in clean meat production. So you're going to narrow down to a handful or whatever number of components that make sense for the task at hand. However, you've also taken sort of an interesting other twist here, which I'm trying to follow, is that microorganisms. Now are they a growth factor in our bodies? I mean, all that you said 50% of our bodies are microorganisms. Do they actually help grow cells and multiply cells? I mean, I guess that's what I'm asking. So, and that's what you're sort of using to sort of get a jump start, or have a very unique way to multiply cells. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah. I mean, what you say is precise. That's right. What they secrete has important role in the maintenance of tissues. Maintenance means the growth of it, the survival of it, the differentiation of it, the differentiation of cells. So it involves all of those aspects. And the factors that they release, or the factors that they induce to release. I mean, there might be some intermediate cell as well. Also, it's worth to investigate. Are important in the maintenance of tissues. For example, in the development, I mean, during the development, babies are dependent on the mother milk, right? The perception is mostly like the milk is for the baby, to feed the baby. Yeah, actually, although this is true, it is not the complete story. The milk is also needed to feed the gut, the bacteria in the gut of the baby. Then the bacteria in the gut of the baby feeds the baby. So actually, so the milk feeds the bacteria, then bacteria feeds the baby. So there's actually a chain reaction over there. But our perception is never like this. So then if you consider this, you can imagine how important the bacteria, the microbiota in the gut of baby in development, in the proliferation and differentiation of cells.
Okay, so I got to ask the question then. So is that true, or even say a baby cow? That the function of the milk is actually to simulate or stimulate, not simulate, but stimulate the gut microbes in their gut so that the calf grows? Is it the same function? Is it similar across all mammals?
Of course, yes, definitely.
Wow.
It is similar. But of course, the content of milk of every species is different, because the species require different factors, right? The milk that we drink, for example, feeds the bacteria that secretes factors important for neural development. I mean, that part of the milk is emphasized in Homo sapiens, but it is not that much important in cows, for example. Therefore, the content might be a bit different. But the logic behind is more or less same.
Okay, so there's another little tidbit in there. So if you want human babies to have neurological development, advanced neurological development, then mother's milk is best, not cow's milk, I assume.
Absolutely, that's true.
Okay, that's very interesting.
That's why mother's milk is indispensable. So you can't exchange it with the cow's milk. It is indispensable in that sense. The content is different because the type of bacteria that you need to feed is different.
Of course, that makes perfect sense as well, right? Yeah. And I think and we're just going a little bit off topic here, but it's interesting, which is the microbiota or the microbiome also differs from sort of individuals and from regions and things like that as well, right? So various, if for you're in Turkey, I'm in India, we could have completely different microbiome functioning, right, based on genes and hereditary patterns and all that as well, right? So this is a very unique subject in its own, the whole microorganism angle, which is what you are really sort of building a lot of intellectual property around, to really take this sort of a different look at doing growth media through this help of microorganisms, I guess. And so, okay, so what impact does this medium that you are developing have potentially? Now, I think, this is a gross simplification of the cell-based meat industry, but let me just take a stab at it, right? So there are cell lines, then there's growth media, then there are scaffolding and things like that. If you were trying to build a sort of a meaty piece of meat or something like that. And then there's also the bioreactors. So these are the like 4 or 5 components that come together. Of course, there's a lot of intellectual property and menus and recipes and all that in there. But that's basically how you get cell-based meat. What is how big is this media component, and why is it so important that an affordable alternative be found? Mm-hmm. And I assume yours is an affordable alternative.
Yeah. In a regular molecular biology, or let's say cell biology setup, the major cost, major expense is due to the FPS and the basal media. So if you sum up, I mean, the expenses, like what could they be? The plastics. I mean, in a regular small scale laboratory setup, plastics, the cells, and then the media, the supplements, the electricity, the incubator, safety hoods, whatever. So the 8%, at least the 80%, it may go up to 90, is due to the growth media. So if you want to make the clean meat affordable, then you need to reduce the price of it. And according to studies, the cost of the media as well as the supplement must go by 1000x. So it must decrease by 1000x. And we think it is achievable. So we don't need a big breakthrough in science to be able to achieve it. So as long as you work on optimization, as long as you identify the indispensable components to grow specific cells, then by mixing them in different quantities and then including factors that comes from, I don't know, hidden sources like microorganisms, for example, unknown, then you can increase the efficiency of those growth factors. There's also something like this, which is mostly overlooked. The majority of the supplement is bovine serum albumin, BSA. It is not a growth factor, but an important protein that must be found in the supplements. And it is the most abundant protein that circulates in our blood. It is important in the regulation of osmotic pressure, and it carries endogenous and exogenous molecules like lipids, vitamins, hormones, and drugs in the blood. So BSA must be there. BSA is kind of indispensable, and this is what we have experienced so far. But again, the price of the supplement, the major expense in the price of supplement is BSA because of high concentration of it. So you need to use like at least 800 nanogram per ml, which is quite concentrated. So a regular growth factors, for example, FGF, is used at levels of 10 nanogram per ml. So like 80-fold more must be in the supplement as BSA. So if you can find a factor that can increase, for example, the efficiency, the activity provided by BSA, then you can drop the concentration of BSA, which then you can drop the price of the supplements, right? eventually. So this could be also another strategy. So mixing all those limited number of factors plus some other content that we are investigating, then you can decrease the price further. So in that sense, what we are doing gonna help the sector. I mean, significantly.
Yeah, I think you were throwing out a number about the growth media prices could come down as much as 90% if you're successful.
Mm-hmm.
Is that an accurate number? So you mentioned earlier that you were also using some plant sources, right? So to make this cruelty-free, so microorganisms, some plant-based things, and you also said maybe some other cell lines with our cruelty-free. I guess they're easily obtained and then done. So these are the sort of the three components or the three ingredients, I guess, of what you're doing that's different from obviously the fetal-bovine serum, which is obviously comes from the fetus of a baby cow. So now, Erdem, what is the market size? I mean, so now we people, the lay people on this side of the fence. We heard about all these cell-based meat companies. We know that maybe some of them will start to appear in 2025 commercially, right? So this is obviously something that's happening in the future. We've heard of the handful of companies, or maybe the 10, 20, 30, 40 companies. And of course, there's much more working on this stuff. So what is actually your market size for the product that you're developing?
So we are targeting the producers. So we are not aiming to produce the meat, the end product. To be able to produce the meat, you need separate infrastructure. But we are focusing on providing the material to produce it, and therefore our business model is mostly B2B, business to business. Therefore, our market depends on their market. So how much of conventional meat markets will be shared by clean meat markets also determines our market. So if I am not remembering wrong, by 2025, I mean, in 5 years, the share of clean meat gonna be like 5%, 5 to 10%. It will increase up to that levels. Therefore, so you can imagine our markets in parallel with those statistics. So the market is huge, of course, but there's going to be other players as well. So there will be some competitors, and of course, if I say we are going to have the 100% of market, it won't be realistic. So we will, we are aiming to occupy a portion of it. But so I can say we are aiming to sell our product to 1 out of 3 of clean meat producers.
1 out of 3. Okay, that's a decent target. That's a very good target. So I know that some people had asked me, and by the way, if you have any questions, if you're listening in, feel free to sort of send them across to Erdem. We'll have them answered. Additionally, I know that Shiok Meats is potentially using your media, right? So they're making seafood, primarily shrimp and lobster and things like that. So while the company name is Biftek, your media can be used for companies who are not only doing meat or beef, but chicken or fish or whatever else that is cell-based. Am I correct?
Yeah. That's true. So when we have started this business, we did not really foresee that could be also used for fish. So we said, all right, Biftek sounds like beef technology, and Biftek means steak in Turkish, so it's fits very well. But you're right. If so, you optimize the components according to fish. Yes, it can be used. The good thing is that the motor control, I mean the molecular mechanisms that is designed to be able to move living organisms are conserved from bacteria to higher organisms. So there is actin, there is myosin. Myosin moves on the actin proteins, and then you achieve the movement, and it's conserved all around the living organisms. Therefore, we are not anticipating big differences between species to species. So therefore, it can be applied to fish as well as cow as well as chicken. There may be some fine tuning, which is not a big deal. So we have access to high throughput assays that tells you precisely what is the point that must be different. You may fine tune it and then ship it. So we are at that step right now. We are in contact with Shiok Meats. They are willing to try our sample. But so far, we always worked with chicken and cow. So we need some more time to optimize it for crustaceans or fish. So therefore, there's going to be a delay.
Okay. So we had Sandhya Sriram on our show. So she was fabulous and fascinating to talk to. And so I saw that on your website and it's like, oh, that's interesting. Because there were some questions on the broad applicability of what you're doing across all of the clean meat areas. And that's interesting. So coming to that question, I have so we've had, Blue Nalu, Lou Cooper House, and Avant Meats, and Turtle Tree Labs here. And I know that from conversations we've had with them that they are developing. They've also developed their own sort of growth medium. In the case of Avant Meat, it's plant based, and so they've also seen the value of potentially actually. And I think Turtle Tree Labs has Turtle Tree Scientific now, which is a separate company, and they've just joined with some pharmaceutical companies to actually make the replacement, the growth media, as a separate kind of revenue stream or company for them. I don't think Blue Nalu is planning on doing that, but I think Avant Meat may be considering to do that, and Turtle Tree is definitely doing that. So, would they be potential competitors to what you're doing? And what would be your sales pitch be? Now, let's say there's a bunch of entrepreneurs listening today and they want to go start their own sort of clean meat company, right? And they're rather daunted about the price that they would have to pay for FBS, and it's one of the maybe an inhibitor to sort of starting that. Should they now look for you to you're providing one large component, a significant component of that a mix, and you can work with them in partnership, and they can focus on the cell lines and other things that they want to do, and let the growth media be something that you work on. Is that the value proposition that you're suggesting to people in the space?
Mm-hmm. Well, kind of, yes. So in collaboration, so being in collaboration, requires some financial sources. So you could be either writing grants together to get this grant from governments, for example, or they may buy research and development from you. They may tell you what they need, and you will focus a team in your group to work so particularly on that project. So there are two ways of doing this. Since this space is quite new, the sector is quite new. The companies that are aiming to produce the end product had to produce the FPS replacement in-house, because there are no companies around in the world that has achieved to produce muscle stem cells without FPS, right? So they had to do it on their own. Their success cannot be dependent on success of another startup like us. Right. But in the long run, so you may think like, all right, they have a let's say a formulation, but if you can go with another formulation that can replace their formulation and cheaper, then why would they use yours, right? So I don't see them as competitors. I see always them as collaborators, because this is just starting sector, and so we will exchange, of course, information and samples.
Mm-hmm. You could also see them as potential customers in a future iteration, right? So once your product matures, it may not be feasible or sort of cost prohibitive for them to keep maintaining a separate team just working on media when they could just essentially buy that ingredient. Like somebody would buy sugar in the market to make candy or chocolate, right? I mean, you don't have to grow your own sugar cane and process it, and so some of these components, as the market matures, the industry matures, what you're looking at is essentially various of these components. People will have bigger choices or more choices, right? So there may be 4 or 5 other media that one can pick. There'll be different scaffolding companies making different kinds of scaffolding. So you could experiment, like today the plant-based industry, smart protein industry looks for goes to an ingredient company, and there are many of those now, and they can source any kind of ingredient or isolate they want for their plant-based. So you foresee something similar happening, I assume, and that's why you positioned yourself as potentially one of those early players. I'm assuming. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I see this market like the market of brewery. So there are big, big producers and local producers that provide beers made for locals, and they all together survive, right? So they create an ecosystem. They survive, and they provide their customers for different tastes. So this is going to be the same, in my opinion, as the market matures. We will see how it shapes. But yeah, so what you say is true, definitely. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what's next? I know that you've raised some funds right now. If you want to share that number, you can go ahead. And what's next for you? I'm assuming you're continuing to raise funds. And what is the next round going to be like? What are you looking for in terms of investors to join you?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So far, we got grants from government 2 times. We have a finished project. We have a running project. We have another pending project. So under judgment, and we got investment from BIV. And right now we are in a round. We hope it's going to end in a month time. So we are open to discussions, and the amount that we are trying to raise is $2 million.
Okay.
$2 million for 18 months runway.
Okay.
So
you're about a month away from closing that 2 million round, hopefully, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. This is what we hope.
And you're looking for investors who are, who are in what shape or form? I mean, you're looking for investors, for example, who know this space very well, who want to get into this space. You have any preferences for the kind of investors you're looking for?
Actually, we have no preference, but the investors may have preference. For example, there are interested parties in Turkey, but they feel a bit hesitant while giving the money because they are not scientists. I mean, just they can't understand what's going on as much as we do. Therefore, they don't feel that comfort, and they are looking for investors. I mean, the lead investors who are already in the business, who had already made investments, and they see as a a reference point to be able to trust. So as I say, we have no preference. I mean, so anyone who is interested in, anyone who has some enthusiasm to change the current situation is actually what we like to talk to, because you are in the same frequency, you understand each other. So right. Why am I doing this? Why don't I just open up a restaurant and then selling foods, which will make for sure make some revenue? I mean, why am I in this business? So if you have reciprocal understanding, then it is easier to convince people. But as I said, mostly investors are looking for lead investors if they are not really understanding, if they are not really in this field,
in this space. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And well, I mean, I think what's a positive is that for everybody in the industry is that last year was a banner year for Smart Protein. I think it's $2.9 billion were invested, and it's been an amazing year. So hopefully, rising tides float all ships. So I'm hoping that the rising tide of investor dollars and interest in this, I would say, earth-changing, life-changing new revolution, much needed to save the planet, will get the right companies will get the right investment. So I wish you, Erdem, all the very best, in your team as well. Great to sort of learn a lot today on our conversation. I'm not a scientist, but thank you for making very, very technical and scientific information easy to digest for me, and I'm sure some members of my audience who are not scientists. So thank you very much. Wish you all the very best in this upcoming round, and hopefully it's oversubscribed and you get to pick and choose who you bring on as investors. So all the very best. Please keep in touch, and we'll look forward to connecting again at some point in the future.
Of course, yeah. It was my pleasure. It was fun to have this conversation with you, and thank you for the audience for their patience.
Oh, no problem. You're very welcome. Thank you so much, Erdem. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.